Hey, welcome to another episode of Your Faith and Health Community. I'm your host, Pastor Jackie Jackson, and as always, on behalf of myself and our producer, Anita Alexander, I want to thank you very much for taking out time of your busy day to spend with us. We hope we give you some information that will improve your quality of life. And before we jump into anything, because we have a very special guest, and you probably think I say that every time, because every time we have very special guests, and it's really awesome. But I just got to ask, and you know I'm going to ask you, have you got enrolled in healthcare? You know that we're coming toward November, and November is open enrollment, where you go into the marketplace and look for your health insurance. But if you have not, if you don't qualify to go into marketplace, in other words, if your income is $16,228 or less and you're single, that makes you eligible for Medicaid. That's expanded Medicaid through the state of Ohio. Covers your dental, vision, health, emergency room, precondition. Yes, precondition issues, situations are covered in that. So I want to make this short because I want to get enough time in, but you know I've got to bug you because some of you just haven't done it yet, and I've been saying this for 3.5 years. You need to get enrolled in some type of health insurance, whether it's through extended Medicaid or it's through the marketplace. www.healthcare.com if you're going to the marketplace. Get enrolled. If you don't want to do it for yourself, that's fine. Do it for your family. Do it for the people that care about you. The other thing I want to mention, which isn't on healthcare, but I think is also important. Listen, there are parents, there are mothers and fathers. You know what your children are doing. You know what your kids are doing in the community. Listen, every kid in the community is not bad, but every child in the community, and when I talk about child, I'm actually talking our teenagers up. If you know that your children are selling drugs, you need to do something because it's your responsibility. You're either a part of the solution or you're a part of the problem. And I got a secret for you. There is nothing in the middle. If you know that your children have weapons, they have guns in your house, and they're not legal, and especially if they're teenagers or they don't have legal guns, it's your responsibility to make sure that your house becomes a gun-free zone. It's too late after something happens. It's too late if they hurt somebody or if they get hurt or they hurt you or another family member. So you've got to take on that responsibility. It's time for us to stop looking for solutions everywhere else and start dealing with solutions in ourselves and in our home. I'll leave you alone now. Get enrolled in healthcare. Take care of your house. Take care of your children. Take your responsibility. Be responsible. So like I said, I have a very special guest. We have Iris Roley. I've heard her called a number of things, from Sister Iris to the Black Queen to Queen. All I know is that whenever I see her, I'm happy to see her because I know the work that she does is important. She always seems to have a smile on her face. She always seems to want to uplift. So Iris, I want to thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Pastor Jackie Jackson. And I wouldn't be as fabulous as I am without you. So without your upliftment, and when I call you for help and assistance, and I know we've done some things together that most people wouldn't even dream of knowing or didn't know that we did. But the work that you do, the foundational, constitutional man that you are in our community inspires me to be exactly what you described. And I just want to thank Faith and Health and the community and the producer, Anita Alexander. Thank you all for having me here so that we can continue to work and build and lay the foundation for those that are coming into our community. So thank you.
So we'll say to God be the glory on both our halves. We'll let him have the glory, and we'll just continue to be the vessel that he chooses to use as long as he chooses to use us. But again, thank you. I want to jump in because we don't have a whole lot of time, and we could probably spend the next 3 or 4 hours and just be at the beginning of the Iris Roley story.
Well, I'll come back.
Well, definitely. Oh, we're going to have to get you to come back. We'll have to come to you. One way or the other, we're going to get you here again. I want to talk about something.
Sure.
Because we know you have a long history. You're working in the community. You're looking at the well-being for the community. We know you work with the city of Cincinnati on things like the collaborative and whatnot. You're out in the communities. If people are hurting, if whether it's shootings or injustice, you're there. And I want to go back on something real fast. This is going back to the president of A. Philip Randolph Institute. Well, she was the keynote for this particular event. And I'm assuming you were at this event?
Well, she's coming this year.
Oh, she's
And
coming this year.
She's coming this year, and she's the first president of the A. Philip Randolph Institute, of which we all should know about, historically, about what other civil rights organizations have done in the history and capacity of African Americans in America. So she's the first president. She will be the keynote speaker this year for the NAACP's annual fundraiser, and I would encourage everyone to come and hear and listen, because oftentimes we don't do work in silos. So I call Jackie, I call the NAACP, we all call each other, we call NAN, we all call one another, we call the Nation of Islam. We all end up at the same place at the same time, right?
And we need to.
And we need to. And more often, people don't understand or know that. So when they see us all collectively come together, we may be coming from different types of religious or spiritual backgrounds, but it's our faith and it is our belief that brings us together, that makes us do. We don't stop there at the word. We let the word inspire us to keep moving collectively together. So she'll be here, and that is actually next Saturday. And it's the only fundraiser that the NAACP has, and NAACP is our oldest civil rights organization. And so I would encourage everybody to come out and hear what this beautiful young lady has to say in motivation and keeping our feet on the street like yours, because oftentimes I ask you all the time, how do you all do it as outreach workers? You see things that most people don't see. You see the good, you see the bad, you see the very ugly in the communities. You see the good, the bad, and the very ugly of our children. You see the good and bad and the very ugly of parents, and the good and bad of government, and the very ugly of government. So you all see it and internalize it. So I just want to say that I love you for being in this role, and the caring gentleman that you are in that particular role. So you all need some, places to breathe too, because of what you see and that you internalize. And it is trauma. It's a lot of trauma out there. So thank you for the work. Thank you for bringing it, and thank you for allowing me to have this conversation. But yes, be there next Saturday.
Right. Well, like I always like to say, it's to God be the glory, because if I had my way, I'd be at home playing Madden when those situations occur. But being a part of the community outreach advocates, I do find it to me, it's extended ministry, actually. Okay. It's my mission. In fact, I was doing the work probably a year before I knew the outreach team existed.
Okay. Wow.
And I actually met the outreach team going to the homicides and going to the shootings and doing outreach in the streets, because that's for me, that's what ministry is.
That's amazing.
I like being indoors if it's freezing, but right. But ministry to me is in the streets and not concealed with, how they say, preaching to the choir. Yeah. I prefer to preach or speak to not the choir. Mm-hmm. Everybody's speaking to the choir. But I want to get back on you, because this is about Iris Roley, not about me. But I wanted to read this. This is from 2017.
Iris Roley is about us. That's the beauty of it. Let me just say this to you, Jackie. Someone asked my husband, Jesse Roley, and we just celebrated 25 years of marriage. Not being together, but of marriage, which is a contractual agreement, a moral agreement, a judgmental agreement. And I can't even tell you where the 25 years have gone. I just looked up one day and we were 10 years, 15 years, 20, now 25 years. But he said to someone, because they asked him, how are you married to her? And one thing you have to understand, that Jesse is of the universe as well. All you gotta do is talk to him, right? We almost are too similar. But he said he understood when he met me that I belonged to my community, that the universe gave him me, but I belong to the community, and he is okay with that. And so I am you. I am Anita. I am the community, and that's why it flows. That's why you were able to see the outreach workers at a very horrible scene, but your heart, your mission, your work, it exuded to them, and you were able to connect. That's how the universe provides us here. We're supposed to connect. So I am all of us. So I know you want to talk about me, but you can't talk about me without talking about you.
Well, but the Bible also says, the Bible says, give honor to those of which honor is due. And so that's why, and it's not to embarrass you. I don't mean embarrass you in a bad way, but to just like, I'm not trying to just throw praise on you, but the work that you're doing is really important work. And I don't know that all the time people know the work you're doing in a full scope, right? They may see you over here and see you over there and then just put you in that pocket and not realize that you spanned over. If it's community, put it this way, if it's community, you're doing the work.
I'm there.
And so.
And I'll humbly accept the love. I try to. It's difficult to do it. And you know it, because if you get some praise, then someone comes behind it and says very negative things. You're not doing enough, or why aren't you doing this? Or even, Jackie, I have people asking me who look like me and say, why do you do so much? But I take that as a ministry too, to educate, well, why not? And if we all just did a little more, then Jackie, Iris, and Anita could do a little less. If we all just did a little more in the areas that we felt good about doing in, where our gifts lie, where our energies want to connect to, where we have the potential of lifting somebody else up. And it's not always for being in the spotlight, because that's not always positive either, because people think that with this work comes a lot of responsibility.
So I'm going to say this piece on you, and you're not going to stop me this time. Anita, turn her mic off. No, I'm going to get this out. This was from the NAACP, and this goes back July 28th, 2017.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Oh, really? I'll make sure that you take it with you then. And it says, a special thanks to Mrs. Iris Roley, a distinguished member of the Cincinnati NAACP and one of the founding members of the Cincinnati Black United Front, as well as Cincinnati Black United Front attorney Al and Gerstein, yes, and President Eddie Hawkins of the Sentinel Police Association and Cincinnati Police Department for joining us for our general membership meeting last night. We discussed the landmark document, the collaborative agreement, and which is currently being reviewed to be refreshed. I'm going to stop there because having you there, the work that you do around the collaborative, and this was taking me into the collaborative. What is the collaborative agreement? Because I think people hear it, and I don't know if most people even have an idea what it is. So what is the collaborative agreement?
The collaborative agreement, we actually named it, Jackie. It came out of a federal lawsuit that the Cincinnati Black United Front and the ACLU of Ohio filed against the city, the FOP, and the Cincinnati Police Department in April of 2001. First, it was just a lawsuit. It was just a case number. I think it's, well, I won't even try to recite the case number. But what we alleged is police brutality and police misconduct. And that was after the 13th unarmed black man, in our opinion, had been gunned down in the streets by the Cincinnati Police Department and or other municipalities, right? And so after the 13th, which was the 12th was Jeffrey Irons, and then in 24 hours there was Roger Owensby Jr. So we had the 12th and the 13th and the 14th occur within 24 hours. And the black community was in a bubble, and the black community was bubbling, and it was angry because we would always get this report back from the police department in the city saying the shooting was justified without any type of investigation, without any type of concern around how the community was digesting this, how the family accepted that. What did the community see? Where were the police? Why were all of these people there? What actually happened, right? So before we could get to an investigation, you would hear the words that the shooting was justified. Well, that was unacceptable to us at that time. So we decided that...
So justifiable, it was just, it happened and it's good.
It's good.
Okay.
And for Roger Owensby Jr., who was a veteran and was never described as such in the local newspaper, who was never talked about serving 2 tours of duty and happened to be a parent raising his daughter alone with his parents helping him while he was away, and that he was home only 6 months before he was killed at that location on the corner of Seymour and Langdon Farm, which is 2 blocks away from where my business sits. So every day I'm reminded of this work that has to get done between communities, between the black community and its police department that we pay for. So what we did is that we sued based on what we laid out as a very negative relationship with the police department that we pay for as taxpayers. We too pay for public service. That is a public service. So what we did was we went out and we got stories from over 400 black people in the city of Cincinnati to determine what the landscape looked like. The state of Ohio says you only can go back 2 years, and so that's what we did. So we asked the black community to come out, tell us, give us their story. We took that, gave it to our attorneys. They took that to federal judge Susan DeLotte, who said, we'll open up so you could do a class action. We actually have other cases. Bumani Tayemba became our class action face, and the Cincinnati Black United Front became the class reps. So it was our job and duty to make sure that we educated, make sure that we sat at the table. And it's the only type of document like this in the whole country. So we have 2 documents, Jackie. I don't know if you know. The collaborative sets the stage for the community to sit with the city and the police to help design any strategies and to help them to understand the community needs as it relates to policing. One of the things, as you know, being out here as a community advocate worker, is that not everything is policeable. Not everything has to do with the police. Some of these other issues are society driven. Some of these other things are just pure neglect. Some of these other things are around jobs and education and around housing and equal pay. Some of these things have nothing to do with police. And how do we resolve those issues simultaneously in holding our police and our elected officials accountable? So when we sued, we changed over 250 recommendations. We created the Citizens Complaint Authority, an independent arm that does investigations for citizens. We have a Community Police Partnering Center that is supposed to teach about problem solving using the SARE process so that we can really pull back the onion and see what the societal issues are. Now let me just say this, Jackie, not everyone believes in the process. There are communities who are extremely skeptical about partnering with the city and the police and allowing the police to, do some internal changes around what needs to be done. So, but we're there, and until we figure out a better process, we will be at the table. That's essentially what the collaborative is about, and I know it's a lot of language, but please Google the collaborative agreement, read it. It's only 35 pages long. I think read the first 9 pages. It'll give you the value statement, the mission, and why we have to have this at this time. And I'm happy to say, Jackie, it's been 18 years since we started this. The implementation of the first wave of the collaborative started in 2002. So we've been at it a long while, and we should really give ourselves a hand in the community because we have community outreach advocates, we have the Community Police Partnering Center, we have the Citizens Complaint Authority, we have all these things that have arisen out of such negative, bad policies and practices that we really should say good job, but we still have a long way to go. We have more to do. We're not like many other cities where we have all of these negative interactions with police, but we have our fair share. And while we need to focus on that, that's what I've been doing for the past 18 years.
Which is a lot of work. On the collaborative agreement, I just want to touch on this. So in August, I believe that the FOP president asked the city manager to reevaluate collaborative agreement members. So it's saying, I guess there's a point of saying, hey, the collaborative agreement works, but we need new people in there. And can you just share with me, and I guess I could read it, but what is that about? Why does there need to be an evaluation of the members?
Well, I think that Mr. Hills is aggravated with some of the processes that I use to get equity and fairness. And Mr. Hills should educate himself on how African Americans have been able to get equity and fairness in any system. We've used every tool in the toolbox, from marching to boycotts to sanctions. We did that to get it here, to being in front of places, protesting, all kinds of things, letter writing, all types of things to get equity, not just for ourselves, but our children, and make sure that they are sustainable and long-lasting. Mr. Hills, he's the current president of the FOP. He certainly wasn't the first FOP president that I've had to work with. I think he's our 5th. So can you imagine being in 2001 when it was really hot and steamy over, trying to help the police understand how to police the black community in an equitable fashion? So now Mr. Hills was upset with Iris Roley because I stood with Judge Tracy Hunter. And we all watched as she was dragged out of the courtroom. And so part of our action to the judge that saw her case, Judge Dinkelacker, who's still overseeing her cases, we went to his house. We peacefully protested. We wanted him to be as uncomfortable as the entire country was watching her being prosecuted. She will be rolling up on 10 years of fighting for her life in January 2020. So we saw it as a very harsh sentence to impose upon her, to execute upon her, to put her in jail for 6 months for something that she didn't do. We saw it as a tragedy and a travesty that she is currently still in jail. So, you know, we will be doing other things. So Mr. Hills thought it was inappropriate for me to exercise my protected speech and go in front of Judge Dinkelacker's house, and so he was commanding that the city administration review my place at the table. I do agree.
Not everybody.
Not everybody.
She's just saying that you need, so basically, even though it said that the FOP president asked city manager to evaluate collaborative agreement members, in essence, you're saying that it was really...
It's really about me.
Just you.
Yeah, it's really about me, and it's really about the victims of police brutality being the abuser asking the victims to step away. And however would you know the level of abuse if the victims step away? Now, one thing I do agree with Mr. Hills is that if you read part of the refresh document that we all, including Mr. Hills, worked on for a year, which is the master plan, if you read that, inside of there, we proposed a whole list of people to sit at the manager's advisory group level. Let me just go back.
Now, this is more recent, right? Are we talking in the beginning, or are we talking about now? The refresh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at the master plan, I actually asked for the NAACP to be there, asked for other organizations who have shown an interest in this work, who have kept up with the work. One of the problematic issues is that when you put people on the boards, and you know this, that have no clue about the work that you're doing, it's problematic. And they can acquiesce or actually defer to the people who were causing the problem. So one of the things that I do agree with Dan Hills is there needs to be more community members, but we have to be mindful and aware of what we're sitting on these boards for, and not just being used as tokens and placeholders and seat warmers. We have to be knowledgeable about who you represent and why you need to represent there at that particular space. So I do agree there should be more, as I proposed, but that's not come to fruition. And so
but that's not evaluating to remove. That's you need to evaluate the situation and see how to get more members on the board.
Absolutely.
So that it works. So here's something
and
where...
may I add, Mr. Jackson?
Oh, please.
I'm a volunteer. I've been volunteering for this for the past 18 years, so it's kind of silly for Mr. Hills to ask someone who's volunteered their time and who understands it and understands the parties. And doesn't mind holding all parties. And when I say all parties, that means communities too. You know, you and I have walked the streets, and there's responsibilities that communities have. So I'm down for it, but I do agree it needs to be more. And I wish Dan Hills could help me convince the community to come sit at the table. That it's not as bad. He's not as bad as people think.
Well, that's something interesting, because apparently in here, in this article, it says that Mr. Hill says as long as Roley is at the table, I won't be there. I don't think her aim is collaboration. I think her aim is self-promotion.
Yeah, who wants to be promoted in this way? Jackie, you know, you and I were talking, and this was off record, about health and wellness and taking care of ourselves. This has taken more toll on me than not. Who in their right mind, and maybe this is a question for a lot of people, and you may want to ask people this question too as you walk your journey and the work that you do, because it never stops. It's 24/7.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, even though you may clock out, it's still 24/7.
Well, you know, when we clock out, our phone, if something happens,
it still
doesn't
rings.
matter if it's 3 in the morning, the phone rings, and it's like,
and it still
you
rings
need
for
to come on.
community people.
Right.
And it still rings for your family, right?
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. And so it would behoove all of us to be mindful about situations that can sway your community right or left. We just need to be present, we need to be involved, and we need to be engaged. I don't want to be here. I don't want to have this conversation, Mr. Jackson, about police mistreating black people or any people. I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to speak to mothers who call me about being pulled over. I don't want to have those conversations. I want police to act accordingly with everyone. That's the cry. Treat black women and black men and black children like you treat non-black people, like you treat the people in Hyde Park. Treat them the same particular way, and I won't have to be at the table.
You're absolutely right. But I'm so glad, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who share my sentiment. I'm glad that you are at the table. I wish we had more time. We have touched maybe like the first tip of the A in the alphabet. We haven't got the A. We just at that. No, it's very good. We're definitely going to get you back, and I thank you again for taking out time.
Can you sing
for
for
being
me
here?
before?
You know what? If we didn't have less than a minute left, I could do that. But how about this? As we're going.
Yes.
Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett.
I'm so glad we had this time together.
Yes, sir.
Just to talk about the things going on. Seem we just get started, then before you know it, comes the time we have to say, thank you very much for spending time with us. Again, I'm Pastor Jackie Jackson with your Faith and Health Community. We hope that you got some information that changes your life, that helps your quality of life. And until the next time we're together, stay faithful, stay healthy.